Next up, we have Mega Man 8. This game was originally released for the PlayStation and ported a month later to the Sega Saturn with a different music track in the background of Tingo Man stage and 2 additional boss fights in Cutman and Woodman that were not in the PlayStation original. I don't know why they decided to add stuff to the Sega Saturn version, but you're not going to see those unless you actually play the Sega Saturn version, which is pretty expensive these days. The only version that has ever been ported to a collection, including the more recent Mega Man Legacy Collection 2, is the PlayStation version. So, Mega Man 8. It follows in Mega Man 7's footsteps when it comes to resetting boss AI patterns when they are hit with their weakness. But just like Mega Man 7, not all of them are reset, and some of them are reset in different ways. For this reason, I will be using the demake version of Mega Man 8 to make my final judgment for the tier list itself. But we will be looking at both the PlayStation version, courtesy of the Legacy Collection, and the demake. So first up is Aquaman. Now, Aquaman is weak to the Astro Crush. It will interrupt him and cause the water stream that he sucks up out of the water below the stage and shoots in a line that changes in 90-degree angles to wrap around Mega Man. It will cause them to break, and all the beads that are at the joints will drop to the ground, which will harm Mega Man if he is standing underneath them, but otherwise it should land harmlessly around him. One thing to note about the PlayStation version is without any upgrades that affect your weapon energy consumption, you don't actually have enough weapon energy to defeat Aquaman with just the Astro Crush. For all of this footage, I tried not to have any upgrades that would affect the boss fight, although I did have the Buster Charge speed up and Buster Fire speed up on the Aquaman fight, which did get seen. But other than that, none of the upgrades that I purchased should affect the boss fight at all. So, let's look a little more in depth at Aquaman. He will always start the fight out, or almost always. I think he can do something different, but he usually starts the fight out by pointing his buster into the water, sucking up some water, and shooting lines of water that changes at 90-degree angles to wrap around Mega Man. To avoid taking damage, you want to stand in between the beads and obviously not stand in a line of water as it's shooting out. Eventually, the water will break and all the beads will drop, which will damage Mega Man if he's standing under them. At which point, Aquaman will typically jump up in the air and stomp down, which I don't think actually stuns you if you're on the ground when he stomps, but it does cause a large column of water to rise up directly where Mega Man is when Aquaman stomps the ground. And once it reaches the apex of where it's rising, it will burst into a bunch of little beads of water that will damage Mega Man, of course. They will go to the sides of where the spout originated, making the middle of where the spout was a safe space that you can actually slide to after the water dissipates but before the drops fall. This is also a point where Aquaman is vulnerable to be attacked. And then his other attack is to shoot his signature attack at you, the water balloon, which is just a blob of water that he flings across the room. He's actually a pretty fun fight. It kind of takes away from that his weakness is a screen nuke. And, yeah, they did up the damage that he takes in the demake version, so you do actually have enough energy to defeat him with a full bar of Astro Crush. So that's good, but unfortunately that does mean that you're not likely to see all of his attacks, even though he doesn't get interrupted in this version. It is a good fight, and for that it will be in the A tier, but he's going to be kind of a low A tier because of the fact that his weakness is a screen nuke that kills him in, I think, 4 hits. It definitely does more damage than it does on the PlayStation version, which is 8 damage there. Next up we have Astro Man. Now, Astro Man has 2 little satellite orbs that tend to rotate around him as he moves about the stage. His signature attack is the Astro Crush, which he will begin by appearing and disappearing in several locations at the top of the screen, and then the only safe place to stand would be wherever he showed up last at. In the demake version, they actually made this slightly harder to dodge, as the meteors from the Astro Crush to the left and to the right of where Astro Man is do kind of clip a little more into where he was than it does in the PlayStation version, making you have to maneuver left and right a little bit. Whereas in the PlayStation version, you can literally just stand underneath Astro Man's gigantic sprite and be fine and not have to move. One of his other attacks is he will just swoop down in an arc before returning to the top of the screen, trying to deal contact damage to you. And his other attack is he will swoop about halfway down the screen and point his arms downward, and his satellites will swirl around the stage in an oval shape in the entire width of the arena, 180 degrees out from one another, and they will take turns firing a spark shot at you. And it's a good chance to get shots off on Astro Man, but you gotta do it while both jumping over these little orbs as well as avoiding getting hit by the spark shots. Now, Astro Man's weakness is the search, or the homing sniper, and in the PlayStation version, it kind of grates on the ears because his iframes wear off before he moves, really. What'll happen is he'll be stunned, his satellites will drop to the floor, and he's not going to move again until the satellites raise back up in the air. But his iframes wear off before then, and you can just shoot another homing sniper at him. And you're just going to hear him repeat a phrase that sounds like, "How could this happen?" repeatedly. And it'll be a very slow death for Astro Man, as the homing sniper only does 3 damage to him. One other thing to note is in the PlayStation version, the homing sniper will home in on Astro Man, but only if it targets him. It can also target the satellites and home in on them instead, doing no damage. In the demake version, they fixed it so that the homing sniper will only target Astro Man, but it still does 3 damage, but for some reason it does seem to go by quicker still. Maybe because his invincibility frames don't last as long. Maybe because you still have stuff to do, because it doesn't stun him. It's a pretty good fight. I do like Astro Man. And even with an attack that homes in on him, It's not bad, not at all. I would definitely put this in the A tier. Probably above Gravity Man. Up next we have Clown Man. Now, Clown Man usually begins the fight by using his stretchy Dalsim arms to grab the trapeze in the center of the top of the screen and spin around. I think he could do it up to 3 times, getting a little bit faster each time. While he's spinning, he electrifies his feet, and if he kicks you, he knocks you into the side, opposite of where he hit you from, obviously. His weakness is the tornado hold. If you hit him with a fan, it does 1 damage, but it doesn't like eat up the attack as far as I know. So I didn't even notice that you could hit him with the fan itself. But the tornado hold, the tornado that comes up out of the fan will deal 4 damage to Clown Man. In both versions, while he is on the trapeze, if the tornado hits him, it will knock him off of the trapeze. In the PlayStation version, he will get all tangled up and be stunned, allowing you to get another free hit off on him. You can actually get 2 hits off on him with a tornado hold if you are quick enough after knocking him off the trapeze to throw another one down at his location. He can also dig his arms into the ground, which will come up at your feet and grab Mega Man, immobilizing him while also dealing, I think it's 3 or 4 ticks of damage, 1 at a time. I think you can wriggle to get out of it faster and make it deal less damage, but I'm not sure on that. It's easy enough to dodge because it'll always be at Mega Man's feet, and if you're just in the air, you can move left or right. You've got a clear tell of him digging his hands in the ground before they come up. That gives you plenty of time to jump. And his other attack is to turn into a large electrified ball that bounces around the bottom half of the screen. Sometimes it will just travel to the wall before changing directions, but sometimes it'll just bounce back and forth around Mega Man. It's easy to slide under, and it can actually bounce at variable heights, but I don't think it can ever bounce low enough that you can't slide under it. It is too big a ball to jump over, though, and this attack is called the Thunder Carnival. And, yeah, he's not too bad. I usually like to start with him when I play Mega Man 8 and buster him down because he's got such an easy pattern to dodge. The only one that really trips me up is the Thunder Carnival because he'll usually get a hit on me with it when I'm not expecting the Thunder Carnival. But when are you ever expecting the Thunder Carnival? I would probably put Clown Man in the B tier. Actually, yeah, I think I'd put him at the top of the B tier. Not quite A tier material, but as I was looking at who else is in the B tier, I did decide that Clown Man is better than Blizzard Man. Next up we have Frost Man. Now, it is true that Mega Man 8 and Mega Man X4 were in development at the same time, to the point that the English voice actress for Mega Man in Mega Man 8 is the same voice actress for X in Mega Man X4. And as such, I feel like it can't be a coincidence that the Ice Element Robot Master in Mega Man 8 looks strikingly similar to the Ice Element Maverick in Mega Man X4. There aren't very many Robot Masters or Mavericks that are extremely large compared to Mega Man or X. But both of these fit that bill. I believe Frostman's actually the only Robot Master that is not basically the same size as Mega Man. Centaur Man notwithstanding, but I mean his torso's kind of like the same. It's just he's on top of a horse body. But anyway, Frostman's a large Robot Master, and he's kind of charming. His intro involves a bunch of little Mega Man ice statues on the ground that he promptly smashes up as he enters the arena, which is great fun. He has a couple of different attacks at his disposal, one of which is to pound the ground, causing the ice blocks that are held on hooks at the top of the screen to systematically drop one by one. He can also jump across the screen. He can jump pretty high and far. He can jump all the way across the screen if he wants to, but I think he usually tries to jump right in front of you. But when he lands, it will stun you if you're on the ground, and also cause the ice blocks at the top of the screen to drop systematically one by one. Another one of his attacks is to put his fist to the ground and charge it up with ice as he dashes across the screen. He won't dash to your location, he'll just dash a set distance. So it is possible for him to come up very far short of where you are. And he can also use his signature attack, the Ice Wave, which will create ice blades that come up one after another and shortly after go back down into the ground. The Ice Wave can be jumped over. I don't think you can actually jump over Frostman without taking damage, but he usually doesn't corner you up too much before jumping and giving you a chance to slide under him. I think Frostman is trying to appease the YouTube algorithm because he is weak to the F-bomb. The Flash Bomb will... in the PS1 version, it's weird about when it stuns him. I think if he's jumping or if he's doing the fist dash attack, that it won't stun him. But if he's using the Ice Wave or if he's pounding the ground, it will. But either way, when it does stun him, he will fall back, like cover his face and kick his feet for a little bit, allowing you to get another hit off on him, which will immediately snap him out of it. But no such stunning in the demake version. It's a good fight. It's challenging, but it is fun, especially when you get to jumping over the ice waves and sliding under him, and it's a good fight. It's probably B tier material, which I think is going to mess up my tier list for a second. So let me just drag him up there real quick. Okay, I decided to drop Frostman right here in between Tomahawk Man and Skullman in the B tier. Next up we have Grenade Man, and I love this guy. He is just out here living his best life. You know, he laughs when you hit him. And he laughs when he jumps around and throws his flash bombs around. You know, when you hit him, he'll say, "Oh yeah!" And perhaps most hilariously is when he dies, he'll say, "That felt good!" So, Grenade Man. His signature attack is the Flash Bomb, which is a grenade that explodes several times in one place upon impact. He can shoot it diagonally at the floor, he can shoot it horizontally at the wall. He can also jump onto the walls, he can hop around the stage, he can also dash across the stage. The flash bombs themselves can be deflected back at Grenade Man with his weakness, the Thunderclaw. However, it does the same damage as hitting him with the Thunderclaw directly, which is 4 pips of health. Grenade Man can... Am I going to say Flash Man? Grenade Man can also shoot out a small barrage of grenades, I think up to 3 grenades, that will land on the floor and then explode after a second or two. In the PS1 version of the fight, about halfway through the fight, he will lay 4 bombs on the floor while clinging to a wall, which will destroy the floor and drop you to a different arena. The original arena was flat, and the second arena has uneven terrain to facilitate his hopping around, and then he'll resume his normal pattern. He doesn't really get stunned by either Thunderclaw directly or by being hit by one of his own flash bombs. However, in the demake version, there is no flat arena. It just starts out on the uneven terrain arena, and his floor-destroying attack is a real attack now. In the PS1 version, I don't think it's possible for that attack to damage you, but it definitely damages you on the demake. You can still deflect his flash bombs back to him with the Thunderclaw. Still weak to the Thunderclaw. He does all the other stuff. He does move a bit faster. He's a little harder to avoid, but he also tends to hop a lot more towards the platforms than the lowest part of the arena between the platforms. So it's not too difficult to avoid getting hit. It's a good fight. I like this a lot. Whew. Yeah, this is an S tier fight. This is a really solid fight. Just everything about it's great. In both versions of it, honestly. Next up we have Searchman. Now Searchman has an interesting gimmick. He will hide in one of 3 bushes on the stage, and you don't have enough time to slash at all 3 of them with his weakness, the Flame Sword. But if you do slash at the one that he's in the PS1 version, this will stun him and give you a chance to hit him again, and also move him on to either repeat that attack or do a different attack. One of the attacks he can do is he'll jump up in the air and shoot out 4 of his homing missiles, which don't, or homing snipers, sorry, which don't actually home in on you in the PS1 version. They will just, at set intervals, turn 90 degrees and go straight down towards the floor. But you can dodge them by standing in between where they change direction. One of his other attacks is to throw spinning spiked blades from high up, and they will bounce back and forth across the edges of the arena as they lower down, disappearing when they hit the floor. It's fairly easy to dodge. He'll shoot 2 of them at a time before moving on to a different attack. In the demake version, things are a little different. He'll still do the bush, and he'll still do the spinning blades. He'll also do the homing sniper, but it works differently. Before he actually shoots them, he will run his targeting reticle around the arena. Sometimes it goes along the floor, sometimes it's just in the air, but when it touches you, that's when he will shoot his homing snipers, and they will all focus on you and home in on your location, which makes the fight significantly more difficult. And there's one additional attack that I saw in the demake version that I don't think I've ever seen in the PS1 version. And I know that the demake took some liberties with at least one of the Robot Masters, and I think this might have been another one of the liberties that they took. But one of his attacks was to shoot out a barrage of missiles horizontally across the stage at ground level. like I said, his weakness is the flame sword. He takes 4 damage to it, and it's pretty good. The arc on it does allow you to hit him no matter how high he jumps in the screen. It doesn't have great range though, but he doesn't really move around a lot when he is actually exposed. The most he moves is when he jumps off the screen and the bushes come down and you don't know which bush he's in yet. Searchman's an alright fight. I'm not so sure about the changes in the demake version. It is good that he doesn't get stunned in that version, but I don't know about changing up the homing sniper the way they did. I would probably put him in the B tier, hanging out with Napalm Man. Next up we have Swordman, or Swordsman as he calls himself at the Robot Master Selection intro. In the PlayStation version, hitting him with his weakness, the water balloon, will not actually reset his AI, but it will deal 4 damage to him. The only part of him that is vulnerable is his upper body from the waist up. And this is because in order for him to use his signature attack, the Flame Sword, he detaches his body and moves his legs and body across the screen, making you jump over the legs. And he'll reform his body, turn around, and swing the sword. And it'll create the same kind of arc that like a car running through a puddle would, except it's of flames. It's very easy to dodge if you just stay far enough away from it. But it does make it tricky to actually get a hit off on him during this time when he's vulnerable. One of his other attacks is he will move over to the wall and jump up high and pause there for a second as a giant totem head will drop on the ground at wherever you are when he jumps up in the air. And it's pretty easy to avoid just by moving left or right of wherever it is. Just stay moving really and don't backtrack if you can avoid it. And his other attack is the Fire Slash, where his upper body will start spinning and it will detach from his legs and move across the screen to the wall, hang there for a minute before returning back to the other side. And when he's doing this attack, the only part of him that is vulnerable is the top of his head, which is easy enough to hit with his weakness, the water balloon. All in all, if I was rating the PS1 version, this would probably be a B tier fight easily. But they took a lot of liberties with this fight in the demake version. They actually made him ridiculously hard. And I'm talking like extra attacks that I normally don't see. Like, I normally fight Swordman with the Buster because of the way the weakness chain works. You can only fight 4 Robot Masters at first, and then the other 4 show up when those are defeated. So there's 2 separate weakness chains. So Swordman is the first one I fight in the second chain, so I don't have his weakness. And yeah, in the demake version, he has an additional attack where, of course, he becomes invulnerable while he's doing it. He starts to suck you in with this flame shield that rotates around his body. I think he'll stop doing it as soon as you get hit by it, but he'll do it for a few seconds if you don't. It's pretty obnoxious. Flame Sword got revamped. It is still done the same way. However, the actual flame that comes from the slash is very different. Instead of just being a little arc that goes about a quarter of the screen's length towards you, it will summon about 15 fireballs that just move horizontally across the screen. You can destroy them with the water balloon, but if you don't have that, it is very difficult to dodge. It's very reminiscent of Airman's tornado patterns. And this is a horrible change. Another change they made that was just not necessary is when he uses the attack where he drops a giant totem head. In the PS1 version, once it hits the ground, it's no longer a hurt box. But on the DMake version, when it hits the ground, just like in the PS1 version, it kind of explodes into bits. Not really explodes, but like it breaks into bits, and they kind of, you know, they kind of spread out a little bit as they fall off the screen. PS1 version, that's harmless. In the DMake version, those shrapnel bits still hurt you, which gives this attack a lot more range, and it wasn't necessary. It really wasn't. To top it all off, for whatever reason, they made Swordman only vulnerable on his head at all times, not just when he's using the Fire Slash. This fight is a stinker in the DMake, which is the version that I am making my final judgment call on. He is D tier. Next up, we have Tengu Man, and I did not know what a Tengu was when I first encountered this word when I played Mega Man 8 for the first time. I mean, I know now that it's a yokai, and I believe it's a yokai that has a really long nose, but I really don't know much about Tengu still, beyond that. Tengu Man, however, he is a floaty boy. He likes to stay in the sky. In fact, his idol is to bob up and down as he kind of sways to the left and the right of Mega Man, regardless where you're walking on the screen. And he has 3 different attacks he can launch. First is his signature move, the Tornado Hold, which you can destroy the fan, which cancels the attack if you use his weakness, the Ice Wave. But if you don't, it will stop before it reaches the edge of the platform. So you can always be safe just by running all the way to the edge. If he's far enough to one side, it may not even make it that far before it just ends naturally. If Mega Man does get caught in it, he will raise up to the top of the tornado, where he will be greeted by Tengu Man, who drop kicks him, which is kind of awesome. The other attack he does from the air is, I'm not sure what it's called, because the voice clip sounds like it's saying something in Japanese to me. But it's some kind of wind slash. It's like a ball of wind that goes down to the ground after he shoots it. It goes along the floor a bit, and then kind of goes upward a little bit as it reaches the edge of the platform. And it does try to knock you off into the pit. Spoilers, there's bottomless pits on both sides of the platform. Instant death mechanics, hooray. And his final attack, he will announce by saying, "Here you go." And he will dive down to the floor, zoom off the left or right side of the screen, and then from directly above Mega Man's location when he begins his descent, he will drop straight down to the floor. And this is the point where you can hit him with his weakness, the Ice Wave, which this is the only time it does anything besides damage to him in the PS1 version. It will get his feet stuck to the ground in ice, where he'll struggle to try to release himself from it. This gives you several seconds to get a free hit on him, upon which taking will immediately free him from it, and he'll go back to idling in the sky. The Ice Wave, when it hits him, does deal 6 damage, so it does more than most of the Robot Master weaknesses. However, you know, I don't think it's a very good choice of weakness to have a weapon that when fired, no matter how high you are up in the air, immediately drops straight down to the ground and travels along the floor, when the opponent that is supposed to be weak to it spends like 98% of the fight in the sky. I don't know. Call me weird. I don't think that's a good fit. It really feels like this is the Robot Master that got the leftover weakness, that they were like, well, all the other weaknesses make sense, but gotta give someone this weakness. The DMake version of the fight does change things a bit. One thing I will note, but I'm not going to hold against it since we are not judging based off of Buster fights, is that in the DMake version it is not possible to hit Tengu Man with a Buster while he is idling in the sky, whereas it is possible in the PS1 version. Just wanted to note that. But yeah, he's a little bit higher up when he's idling, and obviously he doesn't have his callouts when he does his attacks. And since it's a large arena, that's not great. You have to actually see the attack to know which one it is and what you need to do to avoid it. Because of this, you're very likely to get hit by a lot more attacks. The tornado hold does not appear to actually raise Mega Man up to the sky to get drop kicked anymore. It just does damage and lets you pass on through it. I don't even think it knocks Mega Man back any. Tengu Man no longer gets stunned by the Ice Wave at any point in the fight, and he moves a lot faster just in general. It's a very difficult fight, and there's so few opportunities to actually hit him with his weakness. I mean, it's not the worst fight I've ever done, but it's not a good fight. No, it's not. Do I think it's worse than Swordman, though? That's the question. Honestly, a lot of why I think it's a bad fight is just a bad choice of weakness for him. So I think... yeah, I think I can put him near the bottom of the C tier with Shadow Man. And that normally would be the end of this part of the tier list. However, I got one more game I'm going to cover. But wait, there's more. That's right. In this video, we are also going to cover Mega Man and Bass. So Mega Man and Bass was... I think it's technically considered a spin-off of Mega Man 8. But Mega Man 9 confirms that it is part of the mainline series in its ending, where it shows every single time Dr. Wily was defeated. It shows a total of 9 of them, and you know, that's Mega Man 9, so that should be the 9th if Mega Man and Bass is not a canon entry. But it was one of the last Super Nintendo games released, or rather I should say Super Famicom games released, as it never got released in Europe or United States. I believe it came out in 1998, so like this is a couple of years after everybody had moved on to the Nintendo 64. A lot of those really late Super Nintendo titles I don't think got localized, just because the mindset of English-speaking gamers back then really was not about sticking with the 16-bit graphics. They wanted 3D. But anyway, the game does have the same art style as Mega Man 8, which goes to show that Super Nintendo was quite powerful, or at least there were tricks to make it look quite powerful. One thing I will note, though, is that Mega Man and Bass did eventually come out outside of Japan, but it was for the Game Boy Advance. and it's hard to recommend this version because it does have screen crunch. Not so much in the left and right, which that actually is relevant for some of the things I'll be discussing about these Robot Masters. But the vertical screen crunch is real, which doesn't really affect the bosses, but it does make a lot of the platforming more difficult. It makes some jumps actually blind jumps. Yeah, I chose to play the GBA version because A, I already owned the cart and I wanted to actually beat it, and you know, B, I'm not a fan of the fan-made translation patch because they were kind of juvenile about how loose they were with swear words. And, you know, excessive swearing is one of the easiest ways to make a game not feel like your fan translation could have been made by the company that actually makes the game. But I digress. The reason I'm covering Mega Man and Bass in the same video as Mega Man 8 is because it does actually use two of the same Robot Masters. From Mega Man 2 up until Mega Man 8, almost all of the Robot Masters were created by fans in contests held in Japan. One actually got held in Europe and North America, which resulted in, I believe, Yamato Man and Nightman. Don't quote me on that. I'm just pulling that off the top of my head. But, when Mega Man 8 rolled around, only 6 of the Robot Masters were made by fans, and 2 of them, I guess, were made by Capcom, and those 2 were Astro Man and Tengu Man, which were reused for Mega Man and Bass. Now, the person who created this tier maker that I'm using, Brick Road, he did not include a Mega Man and Bass icon for either of those Robot Masters. And I'm not going to claim that this was some kind of oversight. In fact, I think the oversight was the fact that he included Mega Man and Bass in this list at all. He must have just done it because whatever image he got all these icons for the Robot Masters from just had them on there, and he just decided, what the heck, I'll put them on there. As such, I won't have any permanent representation on this list for the Mega Man and Bass version of Tengu Man and Astro Man, but they are totally different fights from Mega Man 8, and I am going to give them an official ranking. That just gotta remember, the ones that you see on here are Mega Man 8, not Mega Man and Bass. That said, our first Robot Master is none other than Astro Man. So, Astro Man no longer uses the Astro Crush as his signature attack. Instead, he uses the Copy Vision. And the way this attack works is he will start in either the upper left or the upper right corner. He will fire a spark ball at you, swoop in an arc down to the ground level and then up to the other corner. And where he swooped from, one of these green flickering Astro Man will be left behind. And when he leaves the other corner, he'll leave one there. And as he goes back and forth a couple times, taking pot shots at you with these spark balls, so too will the Copy Vision. During the Copy Vision attack, you do have a chance to actually attack Astro Man, but it's very risky. You're very likely to get hit if you take the opportunity, except at very specific small windows. One of Astro Man's other attacks, during which he is completely invulnerable, I might add, he will show up about midway through the vertical area of the screen, and in 3 random spots, he won't go backward. He'll pick one direction to go across the screen from, and he'll stop in 3 spots on the way. and he will shoot a green beam down into the floor, which will create like a little magic hole that one of the little pit monsters will jump out of. The best way to deal with this is just as he's spawning them, destroy the pit monster with your Mega Buster, because they do stick around for quite some time and limit the safe area you have to dodge his other attacks from. And of course his remaining attack is just to swoop down and try and hit you with contact damage like he does in the Mega Man 8 fight. Astro Man's weakness this time around is the magic card, which I think is actually a decent weakness for him, because you can aim it upward and you can also shoot it left and right. And the only real problem is that it only does 2 damage to him, which is not a lot. You can actually deal more damage with a charged up Mega Buster, but you also can't fire that as fast, which would probably matter more if he didn't have as long of iframes as he does in Mega Man and Base. I don't know. It's a good weakness, just bad damage output, which makes the fight drag on quite long, even with the weakness. For this reason, I would have to put Mega Man and Base's Astro Man probably in the C tier. Let's see. Yeah, I think he'd have to be below Top Man. Yeah, it'd probably be more closer to around Drill Man and Tengu Man. Probably in between Drill Man and Tengu Man, just because he does spend a lot of time invulnerable and he takes very little damage. It's not the best of fights. Next up we have Burner Man, and this guy has a lot going on. Holy cow. So, one of his attacks is he will dash all the way to the left and all the way to the right of the platform. And I don't think there is any set number of times he does this. I usually see him do it once to the left and once to the right, but sometimes he does more, sometimes he does less, sometimes he stops midway to do a different attack. It's inconsistent at best. Another one of his attacks is to jump up into the air and do a flaming dive bomb diagonally downward in your location, where upon hitting the ground it will create small waves, well not small, but rather tall waves of flame to the left and right of where he impacted that go out for a short distance. Not any distance that you have to worry about if you're at least a couple steps away from him, but it will make dodging his next attack, which is going to come at you very quickly, a little more challenging. Sometimes he will stand there and just throw some kind of bomb or something at you. I'm not exactly sure what this projectile is. And he also can throw like 4 of them, similar to Grenade Man's attack that destroys the floor. And that's not even to mention his signature weapon, which is the Wave Burner, which fires out maybe 2 Mega Man's widths worth of space horizontally, and goes in a wave pattern, obviously from the name Wave Burner, straight out of his buster on his arm. So, what's the problem with Burner Man here? Well, his weakness is the ice wall. Makes sense, you know, fire guy, weak to ice. Kind of makes sense, I guess. I guess some people would argue that fire shouldn't be weak to ice, but I don't know. That's Pokemon logic. However, here's the problem. With how much he dashes around, it is very hard to actually get an ice wall on the field, because if it's not fully formed and he touches it, it just gets destroyed and he doesn't take any damage from it. Second off, I think he'll destroy it even if it is fully formed, if it's not in motion. I'm not 100% on that, however. So what you have to do is find a time where you can create the ice wall and then push it towards him. When it touches him, it will deal, I think, 3 damage? Yeah. It'll deal 3 damage to him when it touches him. And if you're lucky, you might actually be able to get 2 hits from contact with the ice wall off before he falls off the side of the platform into the spike pit. Oh yeah, by the way, there's a spike pit on the left and right of the platform. Hooray for instant death mechanics. He doesn't really make any attempts to actually try to push you into them though, so I guess there's that in his favor. So when you push him off of the platform into the spike pit with an ice wall, he will take an additional 4 damage from the spikes, and then have invincibility frames afterward. However, he will get the invincibility frames no matter what, but he has to actually be on screen when he touches the spikes to take the damage. And this is a very wide arena. This is a really bad fight. It's got a lot of issues. This is an F tier fight for sure. Not as bad as Slash Man, but he really gives Slash Man a run for his money there. It doesn't make matters any better that his is the worst stage in the game. Next up we have Cold Man. Now, Cold Man is weak to the Lightning Bolt. And this is a screen nuke attack. Unfortunately, it does not have enough weapon energy to be able to defeat Cold Man with. You will have to get some Mega Buster shots in. However, the economy of the weapon aside, it is a good weapon for him. I'm usually not too keen on the screen nukes, but in this case it's good because one of his attacks, which he starts doing I think roughly about half his health, he will summon a little cloud guy at the top of the screen, which will slowly move its way towards you. Once it touches you, severely limits your movement until you shake him off. You're probably going to get hit by one of Cold Man's other attacks if it touches you. However, the lightning bolt will destroy it as well as damage Cold Man, so that's good. Another thing the lightning bolt will do is it will interrupt his signature move, the ice wall. It'll destroy the ice wall unless he's already launched it, and it'll stun him for a moment, but it won't give you a free attack on him afterward. So when he's not creating the cloud guy, really the only other thing he'll do is create ice walls and launch them at you, as they'll bounce off the wall and come back to him. And then he'll usually take a small hop towards you at that point and do another ice wall, and he'll repeat it until he gets to about 3/4 of the way over to you, leaving you really no choice but to jump over him, which you can do. It's not a bad fight. The only real problem here is the weapon economy not being great. So due to that, I think I would probably put him in the C tier. Probably at the front, though. If I can get him over there. Yeah. Front of the C tier. Only real problem is the weapon economy. Otherwise, it's a fine fight. Next up, we have Dynamo Man. And just right off the bat, I'm going to tell you, there is only one thing keeping this guy out of the S tier for me. And hear me out here. It is an attack. Well, not an attack, but it is a move that is so bad that very nearly any other robot master that could do something like this would just automatically wind up in the F tier. But, that being said, the fact that I still want to put it almost in the S tier, in spite of something that bad, just speaks volume how good everything else is about this fight. So, his weakness is the copy vision. This is a very interesting weapon weakness. I never thought I would see a defensive weapon used well in Mega Man, but by God, they did it here. And it is done extremely well. So the way copy vision works is when you use it, it'll use a set amount of energy, and for a limited amount of time, a green Mega Man will show up in front of you, shooting repeatedly lemons in the direction that you were facing when you used it. And it's not just a ghostly image. It will absorb projectiles that are shot at you if it passes through it. So you can use it as a shield, and it also shoots, so it does do damage. In addition to that, while it's out, since you can only summon one, you will be able to use Mega Buster shots that don't actually consume your weapon energy. This is the only weapon you can do this with. I know Mega Man 8 had introduced the concept of being able to fire Mega Buster shots while you have a weapon equipped, but for whatever reason, with this game, it went back to the old way where you can only shoot your special weapon when it's equipped. But either way, you can shoot Mega Buster shots free of charge. So, Dynamo Man's basic pattern is he will slide across the screen to the left, slide across to the right, and then he will do an attack. Which attack he does is totally random. The one I see the most is one where he will shoot out little electrodes that have the electrodes themselves take up one tile, and they will have one tile of electricity below them and one tile of electricity above them as they fly across the screen in your direction. And he can shoot these at 3 different heights. The copy vision won't actually absorb these, but one of the heights, if you're just standing on the ground and not jumping, they sail harmlessly over your head. You don't even have to worry about them. One of the heights is so low to the ground that the copy vision will actually shoot the electrode and destroy it. And the other height goes high enough that copy vision won't destroy it. You will have to slide under it because you can't jump over it. You probably wouldn't want to anyway. And I'm not actually sure how many Dynamo Man shoots along the ground, but he only shoots one that you have to slide under, and it's the same pattern every time he does this attack. And when your copy vision's not destroying an electrode, it's dealing a significant chunk of damage to Dynamo Man. He doesn't take a lot of damage per hit, but he does take 2 every time the copy vision hits him. And it's going to stick around for a while. Even when his iframes come and go, he'll probably get off like 3 or 4 hits on Dynamo Man before it despawns. So one of the other attacks Dynamo Man can do is he will create a shield around himself for a few seconds of 3 lightning balls. While he has any of these lightning balls surrounding him, he is completely invulnerable. Unfortunately, even if your shots actually don't touch a lightning ball and do hit him directly, this is really noticeable when he's only got 1 left rotating around him. But just after a few seconds, he'll start throwing them at you one by one. He does this from the ground, so if you've got a copy vision shooting away at him, these shots are going to get soaked up by the copy vision and never come anywhere close to touching you. One of the other attacks he can do is to jump in an arc from one side of the screen to the other, creating 5 of these lightning balls in place in the path of the arc, and they don't shoot in the order they appear. Usually you'll have like one on one side, one on the other side, and it'll flip-flop back and forth. So you have a copy vision in the middle shooting at Dynamo Man, and you walk on the left or the right of the copy vision while these electrical balls come towards you so that the copy vision will soak them up. It's really good defensive use of the weapon. And so that just leaves the one attack that I said was really bad. Oh, it's not an attack, but the one move I said was really, really bad. And usually he'll do this whenever he gets low on health. He won't do it when he's got over half. I don't think I've ever seen him do it when he had that much health. But he will jump into this little like holster for him or whatever at the top middle of the screen, and 2 platforms will appear on the left and right sides of the screen that you can jump on, and you have to destroy the brackets that are holding him in on the left side and on the right side. You can't shoot through him, so you actually have to go to the opposite side after you destroy one of them to get him to stop this move and return to the fight. However, while he is in this thing, he is rapidly recovering health. Like, even if you are on top of your game, he's probably getting at least half of his health back before you get him out of that machine. And if you just make one little slip up, very good chance you're fighting him again from full health. And that's really not a good idea to give a boss. Like, nobody likes it when their boss fight can heal itself, but that is extremely bad. Like I said, it would severely penalize him if the rest of the fight wasn't just so expertly made. The only other thing to note is that every time he completes an attack, he will attempt to jump to your location before he goes back to dashing across the screen. Easily avoided. But yeah, it's an A tier. It's definitely an A tier for me. Probably a little bit better than Shade Man. Next up we have Ground Man. Ground Man is kind of like a Drill Man 2.0. He doesn't spend as much time underground when he does drill underground. He basically comes back up immediately, but he does go underground a lot, and obviously while he's underground you can't attack him. His weakness is the remote mine, and if you're unfamiliar with how it works, you shoot it out horizontally, it'll stick to whatever surface it hits. If it hits Ground Man, it'll stick to Ground Man. I think if he goes underground, then it'll fall off of him and not damage him. However, it's his weakness, so when you press the button again, you'll detonate it, and if it does damage him, it will stun him out of whatever attack he's doing. But he's definitely going to get off attacks after that because of the iframes. You just cannot stun lock him because of that. The most common attack he'll do is he'll like quickly transform into drill mode, dig underground, and then come up right in front of your location trying to land on you as he comes out of the ground. You can easily avoid it by taking a step back. Sometimes he will go into his tank mode and just charge across the screen, wall to wall. You can also knock him out of this with the remote mine. And probably his most dangerous attack, which he tends to do when he gets down to about half health, is he will try to climb up into the ceiling. And you can stop him by hitting him with a remote mine before he gets up to into the ceiling. But if he does get into the ceiling, then he's going to do this attack where it makes a big drill come out of the ceiling, and it takes up like half of the arena, probably more than half the arena. It's very difficult to dodge it. It moves very fast. It does a ton of damage. It's not a fun time for anybody. Honestly, this is not a great fight. Like, it ranges from, you know, almost a stun lock to, like, holy cow, how is this even fair? Not bad enough to be a D tier, I don't think, but it definitely belongs in the C tier. Probably just a smidge better than Drill Man. Next up is Magic Man. Now, in my footage, for whatever reason, he only ever used the one attack, but he does have a couple of other attacks. So first off, yeah, you're gonna see him shooting little magic bolts towards you. He can shoot these several in a row, and they will just fly off the screen in one direction, obviously damaging you if they touch you. He also does like to dash across the screen a lot. Another attack he can do is his signature move, the Magic Card, which works kind of like a boomerang. He'll throw it at in your direction, and it'll come back to him. More likely to hit you on the rebound than it is on the upswing. The other attack, which you're probably not ever going to see if you're using his weakness, the Tengu Blade, is he will jump up in the air and throw an ornament down, which will spawn an enemy. So his weakness is the Tengu Blade, and it'll do 4 damage if you slash him with the blade. It'll do 4 damage if you do a slide, which turns it into a dash attack. And it'll do 3 damage if the projectile from it hits him. And it does appear to stun him and make him shoot a magic bolt or a magic card rather than jump and throw an ornament. He's a really cool looking robot master. I wish that you could see more of the fight when using the weakness, but yeah, I actually watched a couple of videos of other people fighting him just to see if there's anything more to the fight, and I never did see anything other than those 3 attacks, and it just seems a little bit on the weak side. There's no real problems, it's just not a great fight, you know? So maybe maybe down here between Dustman and Cloudman in the B tier. Next up we have Pirate Man. Now, Pirate Man, his arena is underwater. As the fight goes on, the water level will slowly drain, and when it gets low enough, he will actually point his buster upward and refill the arena with water. And this matters because his weakness is the Wave Burner, but it doesn't matter a lot. It just makes 1 point of difference per hit with it. It does 3 damage if you hit him with it underwater. It does 4 damage if you could somehow manage to hit him with it out of water, but it doesn't seem likely that he'll let the water drain enough that you can really take shots at him out of the water with it. Underwater, he will either shoot remote mines at you, which it seems he tends to shoot them in groups of 3 before moving on to his next attack. But most often, when the water level is high enough, he will try to put himself in a bubble and go all Sonic the Hedgehog pinball all over the underwater sections of the arena. But the Wave Burner will knock him out of the bubble, and if he's actually started to do his attack, he'll fall on his face and be stunned for a little bit. I don't know, it's a fun fight. I would have liked to have seen more with the water gimmick, trying to get it low enough to be able to hit him with the Wave Burner out of the water. But honestly, with only 1 point of difference, there's just not enough incentive to even bother trying to do that. You can defeat Pirate Man long before the water has a chance to get anywhere close enough to the bottom of the screen to allow you to hit Pirate Man outside of the water with it. I would probably put it in the B tier ahead of Flashman. And that brings me to our final Robot Master, which was one of the two we used from Mega Man 8, Tengu Man. Now in my footage, he really didn't get a chance to do much, like, at all. But I do know that he basically has the same 3 attacks that he has from Mega Man 8, but they all function differently. We'll start with the Tornado Hold. The Tornado Hold actually is low enough to the ground that you can jump over it with extreme ease if you're playing as base, but it looks doable even if you're playing as Mega Man. He also does the Wind Slash, but instead of just staying in the air and shooting it downward, he will drop to the ground and like take a dash step forward before slashing. I guess this is actually the Tengu Blade. And yeah, it'll create the Wind Slash at the end of it. And his final attack is his Dive Attack, which does function differently than it did in 8. He will wind up a bit before actually diving across the screen, but he will alternate going across the left and the right. And he'll do this several times. It doesn't seem to be a set number of times. You can do it like 3 or 4 times. And when he's done, he will drop down from the top of the screen, but he won't drop down to the ground. He'll just like stop at the top of the screen before he resumes his normal idling animation of bobbing up and down as he goes left and right. His weakness is the Spread Drill, which if you hit him with the big drill, it does 6 damage. If you hit him with the smaller drills, it deals 2 damage. Or, sorry, yeah, if you hit him with the small drill, it does 4 damage. If you hit him with the smallest drills, it does 3 damage. I was looking at the wrong number there. It does kind of stun lock him, though, so he's a really pathetic fight, honestly. I do gotta rate him using the weakness against him, so yeah, he'll probably be at the bottom of the D tier, below Turbo Man. But yeah, that's gonna do it for Mega Man 8 and Mega Man and Base. Getting close to the end of this tier list, only a couple games left to cover.